Okay, welcome everybody of our first training for our 2022 caucus. A lot of stuff I'm going to go through here, and hopefully we can get through all of this in about an hour. But here's our quick outline of stuff. First of all, make sure everybody realizes that Caucus Night is March 8th, 2022 this year. Make sure that's on your calendar. Make sure everybody you're talking to about it is aware of that date. It's a big, important date. Okay, we're going to be talking about stuff before Caucus Night. We're going to be talking about stuff the night of caucus with meeting set up, before the meeting, running the meeting, after the meeting, and then stuff after Caucus Night. So let's get into it. Okay, so there's some things you should be aware of and should be working on, and you should already be trying to get going on some of this stuff here. Okay, so first, get trained with the things you need to be trained about. Obviously, attending this is a good start to get some training on the general overall stuff. But one thing off the top is you do need to decide if you're going to be using ranked choice voting or not in your caucus. And that will be important. I think you want to make sure that you're letting those that are coming to caucus know whether you're using ranked choice voting for your caucus. I encourage people to use it. I think it helps speed things up, but we leave it up to you guys as caucus hosts and your legislative district leaders to kind of make that determination of what's best for you. Big important thing to do is get your volunteers lined up. Here's kind of a quick outline of how many volunteers you might want to consider. So you're going to have some check-in and some new registrations to be dealing with. You probably want at least 4 people there, maybe a few more, depending on the size of your precinct and who you anticipate coming. Some people to hand out the ballots as your candidates come in, a candidate registration person, so that as you have people that are filing or declaring that they want to run, what we're encouraging you to do is to have registrations on these candidates as soon as you know they're filing and they're going to run. You want to get them to fill out a candidate registration. If you wait until the end of the meeting, I guarantee you're going to have some people that either knowingly or unknowingly walk out, and then you're hunting people down to get information from them. So we encourage you to get that information right up front. Now, they can register ahead of times. We're using a voter click system to make it so that people can declare ahead of time in that system that they want to run for a particular role in the precinct. I'm not really going to dive into voter click in this training. We'll probably have another training in the future where we'll get into that more. It's currently getting set up, so I don't even have necessarily the access I need to show you the stuff. Legislative district leaders have had a chance to see it. I'm sure we'll have some stuff coming about that specifically. Okay, timekeeper. If you're going to have speeches or something, you probably want someone set aside that's going to help keep track of that time. And then, of course, election judges and ballot counting. You're going to need some people to help with that. I encourage you to look at either signup.com or Signup Genius to go through and list all the different things you're wanting to have done at your caucus, and use that as your tool to get volunteers to come in and choose the things that they want to help with. Now, some of these can be doubled up, like people can help with registration, and later on maybe they can help with being an election judge or counting ballots. Some of them are kind of at the same time, like you're checking in registration, handing out ballots, and candidate registration. Those are all going to be kind of happening at the beginning of the meeting. And so those, you're going to need separate people for that. But some of these other stuff they can do later. We encourage you to recruit good candidates. The success of your precinct is really going to be heavily dependent upon getting good people to run, especially for your precinct leadership. So next time around, you have another good caucus meeting because you've got good people elected to those leadership positions. Encourage those people that want to run for things to get pre-registered on VoterClick. You're going to be wanting to advertise your caucus night. You need to put up at least 3 signs. You're going to be working with your legislative leaders to get those signs. The party leadership is currently working on getting those and getting them out to the various legislative districts so they can get them to you. If you've got social media pages, obviously this year we have all brand new precincts. Every single precinct in the county is brand new, has a new name. None of the old names are being used. So it's a good time. I would encourage you to work with your legislative leaders to do this, but you can set up new Facebook groups and pages and such to have some, community around your precinct, and encourage your neighbors and stuff to join those so they're aware of what's going on. Also, you can hand out flyers. I've got some fillable flyers that already have a set up format to them. They're quarter sheet where you can print out a full page and cut them into quarter size handout flyers, and you can just go in and put in your precinct name. You can put in, where your precinct caucus night is going to be held. If you have a Facebook page, you can keep that put that URL there, and you can put another URL in there. That's going to be in some resources that I'm compiling for everybody able to be used, and those will be shared shortly. Okay, some supplies that you're going to want to be working on gathering so you can run your caucus effectively. There's going to be a caucus packet that's going to be provided to you. That's going to be coming in a while. There's a bunch of stuff that's going to be in there. Those are being assembled. One of the things that's going to be in that packet is candidate information from those that have announced they're running for various seats. And like we mentioned, the signs, those will be coming from your LD. You need to be considering ballots and ballot boxes. If you're going to be using ranked choice voting, you want to have a ranked choice ballot. If you do know that you want to use ranked choice voting, please let your legislative district leaders know, and make sure they let us know. I'm going to be looking at, if we possibly can afford it, doing some print jobs to actually get sets of ranked choice ballots prepared for those precincts that want to do it, some ranked choice voting ballots. You're going to need a bunch of pens and pencils. Obviously, you encourage people to come to bring their own. Never seem to quite bring enough, but you're going to have, pens and pencils for check-ins, for new registrations, for candidate registrations, just all across the board. You're going to want a stack of voter registration forms, and we'll have the PDF for that available to you as well, so you can have those. You're likely going to have people that are going to show up that have never registered to vote, and they want to register and they want to participate in caucus night, and they can do that night. Having a precinct map, so people make sure they know they're at the right place. You will have people show up that are not at the right place, and you're going to want to be able to know where to direct them. And I encourage you to make sure you've got an American flag so you can do your pledge at the beginning of the meeting. Okay. So then the week before, this is your mad scramble week preparing for caucus night. I encourage everybody, you should know where your caucus is going to be the week before. I encourage you to find a time to go visit the location. Meet with the people that manage the place that you're going to be at. It's probably going to be at a school, so meet with the custodian or whoever. I would share your contact information so they know who you are, and if they need to get a hold of you that night. Know the rules of the place you're using. Make sure that we don't burn bridges and we make things hard for the party down the road. Let's make sure we know what the rules are of the facility we're using and we abide by them. Make sure you're seeing the room layout. How are you going to utilize it? Where are people going to come in? Where are people going to be sitting? Where are you going to post various things that you may need for the meeting? Get an idea of how you want that room to function for you. Determine what resources you're going to need. How many tables you're going to need? Are you going to need chairs to be brought in? Are there enough chairs there? Do you need audio or visual? Or is it a large room that you need a microphone for? One of the options you have that I'm going to show you a little bit later on in the agenda is the reading of the platform. Well, we have a video that you can show instead that takes about 10 minutes. It's a little bit more pleasant for people to hear and see than just someone dry reading that platform. Platform's great, but if you just read straight through it, it's a bit dry. So if you intend on using Wi-Fi for stuff, you know, verify whether the Wi-Fi works well at your location. So, you know, if you know it's a little sketchy and it may not work so well, it's better to know that ahead of time than finding that out the night of. Also, you know where the bathrooms are, the exits are, other safety things, so that when you start the meeting, you can, you know, make your participants aware of those things. Again, this last week before, big push to advertise Caucus Night, push it on your social media things, encourage your candidates to pre-register, encourage those attending to pre-register. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that when we get to the check-in part. They'll be able to go on, pre-register, and make their process of getting checked in when they come to the meeting much smoother. Schedule some time to train your volunteers. Each one of these positions we talked about in the previous slide, you know, there are certain things they have to understand and know how to do properly. Make sure you're setting aside some time to help them get trained for that, okay? There is a 2022 Utah GOP Caucus Packet PDF that you'll get access to. Review that, make sure you understand what's in it. It has, you know, some more details around some specific points. We're going to hit on most of them here, but it's good to have that as a resource. It is general to the whole state, so there are some specific things to Utah County that we're gonna you know, train you on. But, you know, take a minute, review that, make sure you are aware of it. There's some caucus rules in there. Make sure you're familiar with them. They're not too significant, and but you do need to aware of that when things come up. Make sure you know how many state and county delegates your precinct is electing. And so you can make that known to the people at the meeting. That is important. That information is available to your legislative district leaders in the caucus folder that is shared with them. So they should be able to provide to you that information. And finally, as I've pointed out before, decide for sure whether you're going to use what method of voting, so you can be prepared for that. Okay, so night of caucus, we need to set up some things to kind of consider of what you want to be doing, setting up before you open the doors to start letting people in. Work with whoever else is in the building you're in. You may be the only one in one building. You may be an elementary school that you're in the cafeteria and no other precincts are there. That makes it pretty simple. Or you could be in a high school that has 20 some odd precincts all meeting at the same place. Both those scenarios will be happening. If you're in a multi caucus location, work with your LD to make sure you guys have directional signs set up. So people show up, they know which way to go for which caucus breakout. Having some maps that show which precincts are where. Since we have all brand new precincts, almost no one is going to know what precinct they're in. And so having some maps and some help for them to know where they belong is going to be super helpful for them. Okay. Get your tables and chairs set up, get your room arranged. Hopefully you've already had the visits. You have a good idea of where you're going to put stuff. I suggest that you have a pre-registered lane. So those people have taken time to do that can quickly get in and get past that. And you can keep that line moving quickly. Have a general sign in line that lane. That's going to probably take 2 or 3 people. You know, it's just people show up. You're going to need an area for people who are registering to vote for the first time, or they need to fill out a voter registration for a couple other reasons that I'll talk about in just a minute. Have an area for them to deal with that. That's probably the most lengthy part of the process, is those that need to fill out that voter registration. And then have an area for candidate registration and someone working with candidates that are running, so that you have that information filled out before the races. I would suggest, this is a suggestion part here, that you designate some areas in the room before the meeting starts where each candidates for each race can kind of gather, so that as people come, you can encourage them to go talk to the candidates. So you can have an area for those running for precinct chair and vice chair, secretary, state delegate, county delegate. So as people come, they can kind of make their way and talk to the various candidates, ask the questions they want. I would encourage you as well to also encourage those come early. You want to basically open your doors and be ready to start have people come in at about 6 p.m. an hour before the meeting starts, and I would take advantage of that as much as possible, so there can be as much interaction between your precinct members and those candidates as possible and help them make the best decision. Also, prepare where you will have a list of those candidates that are running that is visible, so that people can be aware and they can see who is going to be running and who they will be considering for their voting. Okay, so before the meeting, check in. 6 o'clock has come. It's time to open the doors, bring people in. Okay, there's a few different ways that people are going to be able to check in. If they have pre-registered on VoterClick, and like I said, we'll have more training on that. You need to check their pre-registration. They will have something they can bring with them, either in paper form or on their phone, to show that they have pre-registered on VoterClick. You're going to check that. You're going to check their photo ID, check it with them, make sure everything is all together and they're on their way. Should be super easy and quick in that pre-registered line. For those that did not pre-register but are in the precinct and they're on the list, that would be your general check-in. So for those people, you're going to be verifying their photo ID, verifying that they're on the list, that they truly are a registered Republican. So the list that you're going to get for that, and let me just caveat this, that I believe in VoterClick there's a way for you to do this in the system to check these people in and make it so they can get checked in. If you are in the situation where you have maybe weak Wi-Fi, you don't think that's going to work well in your location, then you'll have paper lists to be able to verify people on. You do need to make sure they're showing a photo ID to show who they are. And you also want them to be checking their contact information, that we have a good phone number for them, we have a good email address for them. So as a party, we can get a hold of them and let them know of things coming up, particularly the next caucus night that's going to come 2 years later. So we want to be able to contact them. Okay, now there's going to be some people that are not on your list, and there's going to be some reasons for that. The list that's going to be in there is going to be active registered Republicans that live within the precinct. Okay, so there's some scenarios that can come up where they might not be on the list. They could be a brand new voter. Okay, they could have just moved to the precinct and have not updated their voter registration, or they could be an unaffiliated or another party affiliation, and they have chosen to change their affiliation that night. They can do all of those things. Okay, all of those things require that they have a recent utility bill that proves where they live, that you can verify they are indeed a resident in the precinct, and a photo ID proving who they are. And then they need to fill out a new voter registration that will then tie them to the Republican Party, tie them to that precinct, and then they will be able to participate. There's also going to be a crop of voters that may come up who are withheld. Okay, now the list that we will have, there's technically 3 different classifications of voters on the voter rolls currently that state law allows for. You have your standard voters. Most people are that way. You have some people that have designated they want their registration to be private. Okay, they, for whatever reason, they don't want it to be available to candidates. That information is not provided to candidates. It is provided to the party that those people are registered to. So we do see, as a party, we see all the private registrations for those that are affiliated as Republicans. So those will be there. But there's a third category called withheld. That's a special category. It's for high-risk people. For example, the governor, the former governor on that list, a few other people, some people that maybe have like restraining orders or other things where they feel like they're at risk if people know where they are, can have a withheld status. We don't get those. We can't see those. They could be a registered Republican. They could be in the precinct, but they won't be on our list. So there's a couple different ways this can be handled. They can go through the standard way that the new voter moved to the precinct can handle it, where they show you a recent utility bill, a photo ID, and they fill out a new registration. That's fine. They can also, on their phone, go to vote.utah.gov and log in there using personal information, their birth date, where they live and stuff, and pull up their voter registration on the lieutenant governor's website, and they can show that to you and you'll be able to tell that they are registered. It'll show what precinct they're in. So you just will look for your precinct is listed there, and then they are a precinct member. They just have a withheld status. Okay. So that's probably the easiest way to deal with those type of voters there. Let's see, we're going to mute you, Karen. Okay, moving along. Oh, click over here. Okay, there's another thing that you're going to have to deal with that may come up during the check-in process, and that is same-day ballots. There's some rules around same-day ballots. I didn't get a chance. I was scrambling to get all this stuff in here. I did put the details around same-day ballots in here, but basically in the rules, there's an option for someone to bring a same-day ballot for another person. They basically put their votes in an envelope. They include, I think, a photocopy of their driver's license to prove their identity. They seal it, they sign across the seal, and they can bring it with somebody else. If you get same-day ballots that people arrive, just make sure you turn those over to whoever you've designated as your election judge so they can hold on to those and make sure those are included when voting happens. I believe, well, I'll have to ask Kirby, there may be an option for people to also do same-day balloting within the voter click system. We'll loop back to that later once that system is fully up and running, and we'll cover that probably in a future training. Okay, so after check-in, you want to give those that have checked in, you've checked them out, they're good to go, they're ready to participate in the meeting, then you need to give them their ballots, okay? So they are ready to vote in the election. It's a little easier if you use ranked choice voting because then you just have one ballot per role or per position you're voting on. If you're doing multi-round, then you need to be giving them multiple ballots. This is kind of your security point right here to make sure that people that aren't authorized to participate in the election don't vote. Because, you know, Caucus Night is open. Visitors are allowed to come and observe but not participate. You know, they can't interrupt the meeting, they can't participate in the meeting, but they can observe. And this is how we make sure that we don't have people that are not valid precinct members participating in the election, is by controlling the ballots. You should ask them whether they're going to be running for a position, and if they are, then direct them over to your candidate registration table. Candidates can run for multiple positions. In fact, if you will be using ranked choice voting, you can just have them specify, hey, I want to for precinct chair, and if I don't win that, I want to run for vice chair, and if I don't win that, maybe I want to run for state delegate and county delegate. And that's fine. They can do that. That's perfectly good. And then invite them to mingle with the candidates and ask the questions with whatever time there is before the actual meeting starts. Okay, candidate registrations. Talk about it for a minute. Make sure all your candidates complete a registration, as I mentioned before, even if it's in the meeting and they are getting nominated in the middle of the meeting, send them over to the candidate registration table and get them filling that out right then. You'll have a little bit of time between when you close nominations and if you start having speeches. Just, you know, send them over, get them to fill that out right then when they get nominated, so you have the information. We need to make sure that we have their voter ID, which they can get which will be on the check-in list, and we'll also they can look it up on that vote.utah.gov if they need to. We want to have their name, their address, their city. We want to have a phone number. If at all possible, verify the phone number works at registration. It's often that we will have people, either they write something down wrong or someone reads it wrong, and then we have a phone number that's not good and that's not helpful. The whole purpose of our precinct leadership and our delegates is to have access and be accessible by candidates. Email address the same way. Take a minute, verify that it works. The phone number, if it's a mobile phone number, it's easy. Just send them a quick text message. Or have them send you a quick text message. You verify, oh, I got it. Great. I know the number works. email the same way. If someone is not willing to provide this information, it's a pretty good indication they're probably not good for this role. Okay. The whole purpose of delegates and leadership is to interact with candidates, and it's not just one way. Okay. They need to be willing to receive campaign information from these candidates are running. That's their purpose in being there, is to engage with them and receive the information they have. Where we have a delegate agreement that's being worked on. I believe that is in the packet.
Build that relationship so she's comfortable.
Aaron, what did you need?
See what we have to offer. And then the bottom right, we have.
Oh, sorry.
Let's see here. Did you still have a question, Aaron? I muted you because you had a lot of background noise. Did you still have a question, Aaron?
Yes, I did. Sorry, I'm in 2 meetings at once right now. So my question is, do you more need this information for the people who win the delegate positions than you do all the people who are running?
Yeah, it's basically, we want to make sure we have that information before they win, because if we wait until after they win, there's a chance we won't get it.
Okay. Yeah, I guess my question was, that this kind of, is one interruption to the flow of people nominating themselves and being vetted, that we need to, do in addition to that process. So I guess I was trying to get out of it in a way and just wait until after the elections and have people register with this information if they win. But
yeah, and I promise, if you don't get this beforehand, you will have some people you're hunting down. It happens every year, every single time.
Fair point.
So I'm just pushing that. Get the information ahead of time. It will simplify your life after the meeting. So, okay. Moving along here. Okay, so caucus night. Let's quickly look over the agenda of the meeting. This is kind of the official agenda that comes from the state. This is what they dictate by bylaw. So we have a welcome and introductions. We have a prayer and a pledge. I suggest you assign that out before the meeting starts. They are stating they want you to read a state welcome letter that is in that Utah GOP caucus packet. It dictates you have the reading of the state or county platform. We will have a video available of the county platform. That's actually quite nice. It takes about 10 minutes. Review of the rules, procedures, duties of precincts and delegate positions. Basically, we want you to make sure that people are well aware of what they're running for and the commitments they are making before they run. We especially want to make it abundantly clear. If you're running for county delegate, there's a county convention you have to attend. Like, it's not optional. It's like, that's the main purpose of being a county delegate. If you're running to be a state delegate, there's a state convention you have to attend. If you can't attend the conventions, don't run. It just makes no sense. Okay. Okay. Nominations and elections, precinct chair, vice chair, secretary. I don't know if many precincts actually elect a treasurer. The only thing the treasurer would really do is handle the donations in the meeting. Typically that's kind of handled by the secretary as well. You can choose to do it. The ranked choice ballots that I have a bunch already printed. If I print more, will not include treasurer. So if you decide to do treasurer, you're on your own for that. State delegates, county delegates. Other businesses directed by the state or county parties. The one thing that kind of fits into that is we will have like a soliciting of donations to help pay for caucus night, to also help pay for convention. It costs us a certain amount of money per delegate head to run convention. And we do our best to fundraise for that and other events like our Lincoln Day dinner and stuff. But we really like it if precincts can kind of step up and go, hey, we're electing, 5, 6 total delegates at $10 a head or whatever. I haven't figured out the exact number that's going to be. Just say, let's encourage the precinct members to come up with $60, $70 from this precinct to help cover the cost of sending our delegates to convention. That's super helpful to the party. Then you're going to need to select your election judges. Hopefully you've kind of taken care of that ahead of time, but as you go through and do those elections, you'll be utilizing them. And then finally, you're going to adjourn the meeting. So let's look at some of the details around that. That's weird. Okay. So nominations. Okay, so candidates can declare they're running for a race up until nominations are closed for that race. So they can show up at the beginning, before the meeting starts and say, I want to run for chair. Early in the meeting, they can still say, I want to run for chair. Or they can just go over to the candidate registration table and go, I want to run for chair. It sounds great. Obviously, you probably don't want them just interrupting randomly in the middle of the meeting to say, I want to run for this. But until nominations are closed, anybody can nominate, and they can nominate themselves. They can be self-nominated. They can be nominated by someone else. Either way is fine. If you're nominated by someone else, the candidate really needs to accept the nomination and agree that they're going to fulfill the duties of that position. Otherwise, it does not make sense to elect them. Nominating someone not present is not allowed because you can't verify A, that they are accepting the nominations, and B, that they are a valid person in the precinct to be able to run for that position. So just to simplify things, and I've seen this happen before. Oh, Joe couldn't make it. I think Joe would be awesome. I want to nominate Joe. Well, Joe's not here. We don't know if Joe's willing to do it. Just don't have that happen. But candidates can pre-register in the voter click system, and there's not really any rules saying they have to be present to be elected. And so if they want to run but they can't make it, we recommend they go in the voter click system to do that pre-registration, because that system will verify who they are. So we have that check done. It will, have them fill out the agreement that yes, they're agreeing to do the duties of the position. And I also highly recommend you keep a visible list of the candidates running, so everybody in the meeting knows who the options are of who they can vote for. That's super helpful. Okay, elections. The precinct can determine how much time to give to each candidate for speeches. Obviously, you could have many people running for various positions. It's not uncommon. You could have a dozen people running for a state delegate position. Take that into account as you decide how much time you're going to allocate. Most of the time I hear precincts saying, we're going to give you 30 seconds, the minute at most. It's not a lot of time. I get it. I wish we had more time to basically allow people to give a much more in-depth reflection of who they are and why that they are running for stuff, so people are better informed to run. But that's kind of just the nature of the time constraints we have. At the end of this call, I'm going to go over an alternative meeting format called the open voting format. It's a pilot program we're doing. If you're interested in that, stick around. We'll be addressing this little issue within that, but I won't get into that till then. Okay. After the speeches, as a precinct host, you want to declare balloting is open. That means that people can fill out their ballots, submit them, whether you're doing multi-round or ranked choice voting. Gather all the ballots, make sure you have ballot boxes to gather those in. Obviously you probably want people to fold over their ballots so that, they're private and such. After everybody's had a chance to vote and you've let people know with good warning that you're closing balloting, then close balloting. If you state the balloting's closed and someone's like, oh, I need to vote still because they weren't paying attention, which does happen, you need the body to agree to reopen balloting so that they can submit their ballot. Okay. So just realize that if that happens, you just go, okay, everybody here, do you agree to reopen balloting for this election so so-and-so person can vote? Open it up, let them vote, close it again. Okay, that can be done. You're going to turn your ballots over to the ballot counters, including the same day ballots you gathered up earlier that may have come with other people. Those are rare, by the way, but it does happen. The rules state that ties will be determined by a coin toss. If you're using ranked choice voting, there is specific things in that process where a coin toss may be needed as it proceeds in its tallying process. While you wait for ballots to be counted, it's fine to be taking nominations and hear speeches for the next race. You just don't want to open balloting for the next race until the previous election is done. For sure, make sure your winners know the dates and times for the county and state conventions that are applicable to them. So if you're a precinct chair, they're going to be going to both. Vice chairs likely are going to be going to the county convention unless you have a small precinct that only gets one county delegate. And then your county and state delegates will be going to the various ones. I highly encourage you to elect alternate delegates. It's very useful to have those. It comes up frequently that someone moves, something comes up, they can't make convention, they need to step down. If you've already got alternates in place, it just makes it much easier for that process. If you do elect delegates, make sure that you specify the order in which they were elected. So you just don't have a general pool of alternates. You have alternate 1, alternate 2, alternate 3 for both your state and county delegates. And those are specified when you turn in the results. Okay. Okay. Closing the meeting. We're going to thank those that still remain, which as the meeting goes on, typically you'll have people that'll kind of dwindle once you get down to those county delegate elections. Thank them for coming, close the meeting. Yeah, you did it, but you're not over. Okay. There's some things we have to make sure we get done before we're out of there. Please make sure you take care of these things before you leave. You want to record the election winners in voter click. Top most important thing, make sure you get those winners in there. You also need to be turning some stuff over to your legislative district leaders. Any paper sign-in sheets you happen to have, make sure those are gathered up and turned in. Your candidate/delegate agreements that are filled out, if they're in paper form, make sure those are turned in. If you have people that completed voter registrations, those have to get turned in, because if they don't get turned in, these people will never actually get registered to vote. And that would be a super bum deal for them. And then your donations envelopes, that's also a big important one to make sure that you gather up and get to your legislative district leadership. After you've wrapped up that stuff, then you can clean up the room. If you've got your volunteers still sticking around, obviously you can get them working on cleaning up while you, as a caucus host, are taking care of the management details here. Okay, I think, yep. Okay, so that's the end of that part of stuff. Let's take some questions for just a minute, and then I will start talking about the open voting caucus pilot. So let's see, Ben, you've got a question.
Actually, it's a comment just from you and I both have the experience with this, is that for caucus hosts, precinct chairs, whoever that is, do not throw anything out. Just put it all together. And then if you're not sure, ask your district leadership if they need this. Because otherwise, I can guarantee even ballots are going to get tossed or other paperwork that's necessary. And you're going to be going through the dumpster at the school to find that paperwork. It's happened. So just don't throw anything out, just keep everything.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, one thing I'm gonna show here real quick. Switch my screen sharing here. Let me move some stuff out of the way first. So we do have a map resource for legislative district leaders to help them with some stuff. Let me see here. Yeah, this should be fine. Stop that for a second. Okay. Okay, so we have a map, and if you, like I said, the legislative district leadership will have a link to this. Work with them if you want to get the information off here. But one of the things I do have on this is all the new precincts. We can zoom in here. We'll look at some Highland precincts here. I have some leaders in here, some layers in here to be able to show these dots I just turned on. These are precinct leaders from the last round, okay? I think chairs and vice chairs. But then I also went in and I pulled in all of our past delegates. And so as you can see, there's a bunch more dots. These are probably going to be some of your prime volunteers to potentially try and contact to see if they're willing to help. They've been active and involved before. The link to this map has been sent out to our legislative district leaders before. It's the map 2 that was in Karen's email from a little bit ago. And so you'll be able to see that new layer. I just added that layer the last few days with the delegates and others, and hopefully that will help you. And you can just click on these. Let's see, not that one. Oops, I actually went to the wrong thing there. Turn that back on. Okay, so you can click on these and it will show you some information, some contact information about those. So we do have, let's see here, I'm going to turn that off. We do have some other documents and stuff that it's going to be shared with our leaders as well. Trying to see if I've got that up here. No, I don't. Anyway, that stuff will be available to your legislative district leaders shortly. Let me go back to my slides here. Okay, okay. Anybody else have any questions? Went through that a little quicker than I thought I would, so we still have a little bit of time. Karen. Oh wait, that's a clap. That wasn't a hand raise.
There are lots
I do
of
have a
questions in
question.
the chat.
I do have a question.
Karen, go ahead.
A lot of the information that you're giving is dependent on our precincts and our ledge district leaders. And I've looked at the map. I know what my precinct is. Is all of this information, do we have to wait until the central committee meeting to find out who our ledge district leaders are? I know that's all being shuffled, right? So how is the best way to find out all of this information that we need to prepare for this night?
So I would start, I do get the point you're making, and yes, everything is shuffled because we have new legislative districts that are getting formed as part of this new caucus election, right? And so our previous district leadership may or may not be in the same legislative district they were before, and even the legislative districts have been renumbered. So it's probably not even the same numbered district. We have contacted all of them. They are aware of their responsibilities, and we've been talking with them at our meetings with them. What I would suggest for you, if you haven't been in contact with those, is to contact whoever was your previous legislative district leader. Trying to think if we have all the updated stuff on the website. I'm not sure if we've updated that with our recent changes and stuff. If not, go ahead and contact one of the party leaders, Skylar, myself, Karen. All of our contact information is on ucrp.org, and we will make sure to get the right people in touch with you and give you their contact information so you can make that connection.
Okay, and who do I have to be? Because my problem is I am a vice chair by default. I don't think my chair is involved anymore. So I'm not sure if I haven't been contacted because I'm the wrong person, or if, do you know what I'm saying?
This is an all hands on deck. Anybody who's willing to help out, you will be involved, and we will get you in touch with the right people. Please don't worry about that.
So I'm just waiting for leaders to contact me, basically, or trying to find out who they are.
Yeah, if you know who your LD was previously, proactively try and get a hold of them. If you're not
Okay.
sure, get a hold of party leadership and we'll help you get in touch with the right people.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Do you mind explaining the voter click system?
So Voter Click is an online system that we're going to be using. It's a system that Kirby Glad has. In that you'll be able to go and log in and you'll be able to declare that you're running for a particular office. You'll, as a precinct member, you'll be able to go and see who has already declared. And the idea behind that is we want to encourage everybody to go get in there. If they're going to run for something, pre-declare. If they're going to come to Caucus Night, pre-register to say they're coming. Get in contact with those people who are running, and honestly start having the conversation, start getting familiar with who's running ahead of time. I don't have access to that currently. It's still in the process of getting set up to be able to show you anything. But that's what the system will do.
All right, so some additional information, including perhaps a demo, is forthcoming.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
No problem. Anyone else? Okay. So since I don't see any other questions, I will go to the next little part, and I want to.
I have a question.
Okay, who's that?
This is Jill Taylor. Where do we find the map that you just showed?
Yes, so that map is available to your legislative district leaders. The map does have a lot of personal information in it, so I'm not sharing that broadly yet. And so I would get a hold of your LD leadership to get information about that.
Okay, and where do we find the voter click?
That information about voter click and how to get logged in and stuff will also be forthcoming. I mean, I can tell you the URL now, but you can't do anything with it because it's not set up yet. It's not, we haven't populated it completely with the new list of people.
Okay.
Yep. So that will be coming. Anything else? Okay, so I'll take a minute and talk about the open voting pilot. I want to make it very clear this is entirely optional. It's entirely a pilot. You can choose whether you want to utilize this or not. In fact, I would say talk with your legislative district leaders. They may want to have you do a certain thing. I would make sure you're in cahoots and with them on what to do. But let me explain what this is about. So this is something that we actually, me and a couple other LDs, last round, I was a legislative district leader. I wasn't the vice chair. We worked for about a year on formulating this kind of format and plans. We did a ton of training and a ton of prep work for this last time. And then all of our caucuses got canceled and we weren't able to do it. So we're going to see who wants to do it this time around. And it's actually not terribly difficult. There's not anything terribly special about it. It just kind of shifts a few things around. Okay. So I'll show you what that's about. Okay. So this optional, again, emphasizing optional open meeting format. So first requirement is you have to use ranked choice voting on it. Otherwise it doesn't work because the whole point behind it is that we are not doing the tallying of the votes in the middle of the meeting. We're waiting to the end of the meeting to do all of our ballot tallying. What that enables us to do is enables us to have the bulk of the meeting focused on what's important to people that are there, hearing from the candidates, talking to the candidates, and figuring out who they want to vote for. Okay. So what this enables us to do is enables us to have an open voting window of time. So you can start accepting ballots at 6 p.m. as soon as people start coming in and registering. And then you can go all the way until you decide to close balloting. We're recommending you probably choose around 9 p.m., maybe 9:30, depending on how much time you have in your particular facility, what room you have, what time you're needing to be out of that space. But that gives you now a big bulk of 3 hours where the focus of that is, hearing from people, getting people more time to be known of who they are, what they stand for. It also provides much better flexibility for participants, because now, because you're using ranked choice voting, someone can vote anytime during that whole window. And they're not locked into having to be present at a specific time of the meeting to enable them to vote. They can show up at 6 p.m., get registered, check who's on the list of people who are running, maybe talk to a few people, fill out their ballots, stick it in the ballot box, and they can go. And then they were able to participate in every single election of caucus night, but they actually didn't have to be there for the formal part of the meeting. What we encourage people to do if they're going to use this format is you can choose to have candidate speeches if you want or not. We're not even convinced that candidate speeches are the best way for people to get to know people. But what we are encouraging is after you have all the nominations taken care of and closed, that if you have speeches, have some short speeches, but then break it out into an open mingle format. Have some designated spaces in the room where the various people running for different positions can be, and then people can go choose to talk and ask questions and get to know those that are running until they're comfortable with how they want to vote. And then they can vote, they can stick around and wait until the end of the meeting when ballots are counted if they want to wait for the results, or if they voted, they can head out. But there's no waiting around. There's no longer waiting around for ballots to be counted, which is one of the biggest delays that happens in a meeting. So in this open meeting format, and I just have a couple slides on it. I'll probably do a more in-depth training about it on some of the nuances about it later on. But it's really just that simple. Use ranked choice voting. Don't count the ballots in the middle of the meeting. Have your voting period open until a designated time at the end of the meeting, and then do all your ballot tallying after that time. You do want to make sure you keep a visible list of all the candidates and for all positions all the time, because anybody could choose to decide to vote at any particular time during the meeting. You want to make sure it's known and announced that balloting is open until a specified time. We suggest at least 9 p.m. and make sure you're giving warnings, so people can make sure they get their ballots turned in before you close all the balloting. And you do want to make sure that you are tallying your ballots in the order that they would have been running in the race. So chair, vice chair, secretary, state delegate, county delegate. Now, you may be asking, well, in the meeting, if someone doesn't win chair, they may still want to be a county delegate or a state delegate. And so normally, if they didn't win that, they could just turn around and either run for vice chair or run for state delegate or run for county delegate. Well, they can still do that under this format. They just basically put their name on all those lists. And if they happen to win chair, when you get to the point of tallying the ballots, since they've already run one chair, when you get to tallying your state delegate ballots, they've already got a state delegate seat. And so you ignore them in your tallying process, in the ranked choice tallying process. And it accommodates that perfectly fine, has no problem with it. So there's really no concern with that. And we, like I said, I think we believe this will bring some big improvements to how the experience of caucus night is for those that participate. One quick thing I'll just kind of mention as a use case that I know I've seen this happen. I've seen it happen at my own precinct where I'll know someone in the neighborhood and, John is there. And I was like, John, why isn't Susie here? It's like, oh, Susie had to stay home with the kids. It's like, well, yeah, that happens all the time. Well, what does that mean? That means that household now has half the voice that they could normally have if they, wanted to be active and participate in their caucus because someone had to watch the kids. Well, under something like this, John could show up, 6:30, get registered, talk to a few people, see who's on the list, vote. And, maybe by 7:30, maybe partially into the meeting, he heads home. Susie can get in the car. She can come over. Maybe she gets there 7:45. By that time, maybe all the nominations are, they've kind of broken out into open mingling. She can go talk to people. ask some questions, see who she likes, make sure she has her ballots filled out before 9 p.m., vote, and then she can head home. So it provides a lot of significant flexibility. And it very easily accommodates for your same day ballots. Someone has a same day ballot, they fill it out, they just put stuff in ranked choice order, and those ballots can just easily be included. The one thing I will point out real quick in this format is you would want to make a distinction between what you would consider early voting and regular voting. And early voting would be anybody who casts a ballot before you close nominations. You would basically say that's early voting. And the reason you would indicate it's early voting is because the list of options can change up until you close nominations. And if someone decides they have to vote or they want to vote at 6:30, well, there could be a whole crop of people that decide to nominate themselves before you close nominations that they wouldn't know about and be able to include in their ballot to consider. But what that does, though, is it puts the flexibility of that and the choices of that on the person voting. And we just, make sure they're fully informed of that. And then they can choose. They can choose how they want to participate in that. So that's basically the rundown on the open voting caucus pilot. And before we move on, I'll just see if anybody has any questions about that.
Yes, this is Daniel Brinkerhoff. I have a question.
Sure.
How do we know, do we have access to the old maps compared to the new maps to see if there were new areas created that we have to all of a sudden try to figure out who to get someone to help out with?
So new areas, what do you mean by new areas?
When you redistrict, when you changed all the boundaries everywhere, sometimes there were new ones that were created, right?
Oh yeah, there definitely, we probably have around 60 to 70 new precincts in the county.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is there a way that we can get access to the old map, have that sent, as well as sending the new map so that we can compare, so that if we have to pull double duty, we know ahead of time before we're completely caught off guard? So, and there's a whole area that doesn't even have anybody running their caucus.
Sure. So it's the responsibility of the legislative district leaders in those areas to make sure that they have coverage for all of the precincts. So are you a precinct chair? Are you a legislative district leader of some sort?
I'm the precinct chair. I'm everything. I'm everything. We didn't have a lot of,
Sure.
I'm all of it. So yeah. So
and what part of the county are you in?
I'm in Salem. What in this temporary map or preliminary map, I'm in SA 401.
Okay.
And I'm just looking at it. I just don't know who's been cut out and who's changed, and if there was one created in this area, because we've had quite a bit of growth.
Yeah.
And so I just want to make sure that everybody's got somebody that shows up. But I guess if the ledge district leader's in charge of that, then I don't know how much I want to stress myself out more than I already am.
Yeah, I appreciate very much the concern. Yes, we are heavily leaning on our legislative district leaders to make sure that's taken care of. Each one of the party officers have been assigned a grouping of districts to work with them and make sure they're doing their part as well. And so we are actively following up with them, making sure that they have locations set aside for each new precinct and all the precincts. And they also have hosts lined up to make sure that those caucuses are running for those precincts as well. And that's one of the reasons I created the maps I did. So, not only can we see where our ledge district leaders have fallen into the new maps, but where have all our precinct leaders fallen, where have all our delegates fallen. So we can go, okay, who do we have in this new precinct that might be able to help out? And, sometimes it works out and sometimes we're begging to find people to help out with stuff. But that's the nature of this. It just kind of goes this way.
I've looked through all, I've looked through all my emails and I can't find any emails from my old ledge district leader. So I don't even know if I know who it is anymore.
Okay. Yeah. So let's see here. I can do a quick look, see if I have the right link up here. I have it up right here. Yeah, send the party leadership an email or get a hold of us. We can make sure we can get you in touch with the right people, and that goes for anybody on the call. If you have not had any contact with legislative district leadership and you want to know who they are and how to get a hold of them, certainly email us and we'll make sure that you have that. We probably now I'm thinking about it, Karen, we probably can even put together another email to send out to everybody to say, okay, with the new districts, here are the different leaders that are working in the new districts and how to get a hold of them. So everybody has that. That would probably be a good thing to do.
That'd be
That's
awesome.
something we can work on.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Great. Okay, thank you everybody for coming. We certainly appreciate your time.